Welcome to Salvage, a podcast for conversations with artists about the repurposed materials they use in their art practice.
Hi, this is Natalia Korobra. Thanks for being here. Please enjoy my conversation with Sarah Schneiderman. She's an artist using non-recyclable trash and repurposed materials to investigate social and political issues.
Well, how are you?
Oh, I'm doing very well. It's warm where I am, which is lovely.
Oh.
And I've been working on the Earth Challenge, Earth Month Repurposed Challenge, which has really been a challenge this year.
Oh, well, is that a good or bad?
I don't know, but some of them, the flowers are so detailed, and I get into that, and then I like to take 3 days to make a flower rather than one every day.
Oh,
so that's
you work to however you work best.
Mm-hmm.
I like to think of them as something to get done really fast, so not to overthink it. But everybody works differently, and that's okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So I thought you were in Connecticut for some reason.
Oh, and I usually am, but I'm a snowbird, and which I never thought I'd say. And I own a small apartment on a Dutch Caribbean island, 50 miles north of Venezuela.
Oh my goodness! How fabulous! Wow.
Yes, and I have. This is a funny thing about working with found materials, trash in particular, is that when people find out that I'm an artist, and even if I tell them what I work with, they say, "Oh, do you bring your materials with you?" And I'm like, "No, all you have to do is keep your clean trash, or wash out your potato chip bag or whatever each week, and you'll have plenty."
Exactly, or probably go walk on the beach if you're on a tropical island, right?
Yes, if I walk over on the east side, where the windward side, where the all the stuff comes over from Africa and Europe and wherever in the middle of the Atlantic, it's very sad that the place is just littered with trash.
Oh, wow. Wow. So how often do you do that? How often do you participate in a beach cleanup?
Not very often. There is one. There's one here once a week, but I haven't been participating in it. But I do sometimes go out hiking, and when I go hiking and where I will bring a bag with me and pick up some of the trash, so that I would utilize in my art.
Right. And so I've been paying attention to your art for, I don't know, a few years now, probably. I think we met, I'm not sure if we met on Instagram, or did we do Beyond Plastics, that class together? Did we do that?
No, I think it was on Instagram that we've been, I'm not sure how we met either, but I know that we both were on some webinars on very various topics, including some with EcoSpace.
Oh, yes. Yes, maybe it was Eco Art Space. You're right. But, yeah.
I actually somehow connected with you before that. And there was so much in 2020 that we could go online to participate in.
Exactly.
And I know that we had met there, and I said, "Wow, what she does is great. The way she uses materials is fabulous." And so then we started following each other on Instagram.
Yeah. It's nice when you actually lose track when you're following so many people who are creative in a similar way that you are. Yeah, that's really, there's so many of us out there, and I find that very inspiring.
Yes.
It's every day that I find a new artist using plastic trash in a new way, and it's very exciting.
Yeah. And then I don't know if this happens to you, but then my friends keep sending me the stuff they see. I can't tell you how many people have sent me a link to Wash Ashore.
Yes.
So particularly since I was using trash before, but when I kind of started this in 2015, I was making fish primarily. And so then people see washed ashore, which is actually stuff that's been washed ashore on the Oregon coast, that they make then huge sculptures.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm like, yeah, I got it, washed ashore.
So what is your main go-to technique when you're putting together your creations?
Well, when I first started, I was using a lot of hot glue and then sealing it with a thin PVA, but that was all new, or I call virgin materials that were plastic.
Mm-hmm.
And well, I've been using some hot glue on the flower challenge. I have switched to sewing and to um, nailing on boards.
Oh, wow.
And
Nailing. Okay.
right, nailing and stapling. And I got this big, strong, battery powered staple gun.
Oh,
that
fun.
Right, very nice. Yeah. So those are my main techniques: is the nailing, stapling, or sewing.
Uh-huh.
Because
wow.
And I mean, I know you have this thread collection that goes on forever. I inherited both my mother and my mother-in-law's thread collection.
Oh, cool.
The thread does get a little brittle, as you know, isn't it?
It does, yeah.
Right.
Dry rot, yeah.
Yeah, but if I'm careful with it, then it's great to use, because it's another one of those elements that this is something I'm keeping out of the landfill.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, I even save my thread waste. If I'm sewing something, the little ends that come off, I save those.
Yes.
By my sewing machine or by hand, I just save them, put them aside, and then add them in some way, in some shape or form, into my artwork as well.
Yeah. If I'm building out an area and I need some stuffing.
Yes.
That's right. And what I've also been doing is that I have 10 boards that are all about the same size, and doing a fish series on them. So since I have a big jar of PVA that I had sent to me in 2020 down here, I'm using it to glue the scrap onto the board, and then I'll put a fish over it, and that scrap kind of emulates the reef.
Oh. So if you don't mind me asking, what is PVA? Is that some type of a glue?
Polyvinyl adhesive. It's Elmer's glue.
Oh, okay.
And there are other people who make it, but
yeah,
it's not the slime. The slime stuff doesn't work.
Yeah, so it's basically a white school glue type of thing.
Yes, that dries clear or almost clear.
Right. And you find that lasts for quite a while?
It's been fine so far.
Oh, great.
There's an artist in England, Jane Perkins, who makes portraits and other things out of scrap plastic. And it's a technique she uses, hot glue, and then coats it with thin PVA.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I found out the hard way that hot glue doesn't last all that long, especially out in the elements.
Yes, it gets brittle, or it can melt.
Or it just kind of falls apart. Yeah, even not out in the elements. I was I was gluing some hard plastic together, and I was sort of using them as a form, and I was building something around it. And then I put it aside for like a month or something, and I came back, and it just fell apart.
Yes.
The hot glue wasn't glue anymore. I don't know what it was, but it wasn't glue anymore.
Right.
Yeah, so interesting. Okay, that's good to know that you can coat it in PVA glue.
Yes.
Interesting.
Thin. It's 25% water to 75% glue.
And does it have some kind of shine to it too?
Maybe a little bit. Elmer's is pretty good about not being shiny or getting milky. It stays clear.
Oh, good to know.
Right. The stuff that in 2020, I stayed here for 8 months.
Oh, wow.
Because we could see how bad things were in the United States. And we just thought, well, why go home?
Right. I can understand that. Yeah.
But as a result, I had some supplies shipped to me once they got that system working again. And so I ordered a gallon of PVA. So I'm not just going to throw it away. I'm going to use it because I bought it. And because, it's throwing it away. It's just throwing it away like any other plastic.
Right. Yeah. And it's essentially is a plastic, a liquid plastic, like acrylic paint is essentially a liquid plastic. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. That's interesting. I like the fact that it can be a little matte, because sometimes when I make things out of shiny plastics, it looks great, but it's very difficult to photograph
Very
because of the
difficult.
shine. So if it's got a little matte to it, that would make it easier to photograph. So maybe,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
maybe something to experiment with in the future. We'll see.
Right. Yes, and I had noticed in your videos it looked like you were using a fast adhesive. Um,
Yeah, I Googled
mhm.
and I was looking to see what kind of glues are best for gluing plastics together. And I landed on a whole bunch of these, like, essentially they're crazy glue.
Uh-huh.
Um, and there's this one, which of course I don't have near me right at the moment, but it's kind of, it's sort of gel-like.
Oh, yes,
Um,
that makes it
so
much
that
easier to
works better.
manage.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
and because I had a more liquidy one, and that was just spreading all over the place. It was all over my fingers before I could glue anything.
Right, exactly. And
Right.
your fingers ended up having these plastic things on it.
Yes.
Plastic
Yeah.
things were not joining each
Right.
other. Yeah. Yeah. Then
So,
you have to
but
get
this,
out the acetone.
right.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't. I just let it dry and then I picked it off.
Right.
But the gel one seems to be working better, but it also it doesn't seem to be gluing all kinds of plastics. Like it
Hmm.
only seems to, and I haven't quite figured out which, like it seems to do well with bottle caps, but
Hmm.
shiny plastics, not so good. So I actually in my pieces for the challenge have used a little bit of hot glue every now and then as well because it worked better.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, that stuff you can even bottle caps you can sew through if you have, a nice
Yes.
metal thimble and even a pair of pliers occasionally, but you can do it.
Yes. Also, I have a Dremel
Mm,
and then a little tool like a Dremel but it's miniature and
yeah,
it will hold even thinner bits. And I have a friend who used to sell dental tools, and she had a bunch of the things they used to drill.
yeah.
Sorry if I'm triggering
No, no,
anybody.
not at all. No, my
And it
parents.
makes a
Go
yeah,
ahead.
and it makes a really nice little hole.
Yeah, yeah,
And so
yeah,
then I can, drill holes in it like a button and so on.
yeah.
And I don't have to like
No, I think
force
that's
the needle.
awesome. My parents used to be dental technicians. So I
Ah,
have a few of the metal tools,
yeah.
but I wish I had kept their like the drill bits, the drills. Like I wish I had kept more of their tools because now I'm like, damn it, I remember my dad using that. I could use it now.
Right, right, exactly. Yeah. So that makes it really easy. It can drill a lot of different plastics, um,
Yeah, that's good
and
to
then
know.
sew them on. Um, this, I have to be careful with hard plastics, really hard plastics, because sometimes they can break.
Right, they can
Um,
just shatter. Yeah. Yeah, I try not to use those. Um, but sometimes, you pick them up, that's what's there. So,
yes,
but I am
yes,
tempted by other people's tools. I've seen people use saws to cut pieces apart and then welders too. They weld it. And then there's a whole bunch of people who are starting to work with the 3D um, printers and stuff.
yeah,
So there's a lot of exciting tool usage out there.
yeah,
One can
yes,
get carried away.
yes. And the Dremel, it has saw drill bits
Oh, really?
so that you can saw through some things. They're small.
Oh,
They can be pretty fine.
oh, good to know.
Yeah.
I'll have to look into it because I have a Dremel tool, but mine does not have, I don't think it has a saw in the attachment. So I'll have to
Or
look into that.
you can buy additional
Yeah. Yeah.
attachments. And the little one I have doesn't have any saw bits to it. Um, and so I don't know whether I can find them for that one
Right.
or whether I just need to use some other technique
Right.
to cut them.
Do you ever
Uh,
melt your plastics?
no, melting is just too toxic.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. That's what I've been hearing too. I mean, that's something I learned from Beyond Plastics about all the chemicals that are in the plastic that get released when it's heated. That's why um, incinerating plastics is a really bad idea. But I've recently talked to several artists who use a low heat melting technique. So apparently, if you can, the harder plastic, if you can just heat it enough to soften it, but not actually melt it, that's the chemicals don't get released yet. So I don't know.
Interesting. And then you can bend
Yeah,
it into different
right.
shapes.
It's right. So as long as it's not dripping, completely melting, then it's not releasing chemicals apparently. So I don't know. I'm tempted to experiment, but I'm a little afraid.
Yes. Yes, I understand. So,
Yeah.
and I saw that before the holiday season, you made these ornaments by casting resin. Um,
Yes. Yeah.
there's a friend of mine in Maryland who met a woman who casts things in acrylic, but acrylic is plastic.
Yeah.
And
Well, so is resin. Resin is plastic as well.
well, I mean, not well, I don't know about that. I had read that resin is from a bug.
So there's different resins.
Oh, okay.
There is a natural,
Yeah.
supposedly resin. Um, I don't know where one can get their hands on it, but I have read it. The one that I'm using is essentially plastic, which
Okay.
is why it took me really long. I've been thinking about using it for years, but I've only recently started doing so in the last 6 months. I really like how it transforms the plastic that I trap in it.
Mhm.
It makes it sort of translucent, and sort of prettifies it, so to speak. So I'm really liking that, but because I'm creating more plastic, I'm hesitant to do a lot of it. So I'm trying to make sure that I'm um, putting in as much stuff into the resin as much
Right.
as possible, so that I'm not, so it's not all clear resin. It's got stuff in it, so I'm using less resin.
Yes.
That's my theory.
Yes.
That's how I'm sort of thinking about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when I was thinking about using the insect-based resin, I thought, am I going to have to let people know that my artwork is not vegan?
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Right.
That's a whole other level there.
Right. So I haven't gone there. I have plenty of other things to work with right now. I need to go the resin
So
part.
what are the series that you're working on now? You said fish. What kind of fish?
Oh, well, uh, I'm a scuba diver, and
Oh.
I've made fish that I started making fish after I took scuba diving. And so I made the realistic fish based on fish that I've seen. And even the more recent ones are actually on photographs
Mm.
that I've taken while diving.
Oh,
Um,
cool.
and so I actually had made the fish until the end of 2016. And then um, there was an election and I couldn't make fish for a while. And I made some portraits of people.
Mm-hmm.
And
They're
and
pretty
then after
incredible.
those,
I remember seeing them.
yes, and then after those 4 years were over, people would say, "Oh, well, that's nobody's going to care about that anymore." And I'm like, "You watch." So, um, and in fact, I'm having a show in August of those portraits.
Oh,
Um,
where?
it's at the Simsbury Library in Simsbury, Connecticut.
Oh, okay, cool.
I
Excellent.
started showing in libraries a couple years ago because I didn't want to show just in galleries. I
Mhm.
wanted people who might not go to galleries to see the
Oh,
work.
that's a
And
great idea. Yeah.
yes. Um, and then at the next election in 2020, there started being news reports about record numbers of people in usually underrepresented communities
Oh.
um, gaining a seat in the legislature or being
Mm-hmm.
appointed to a federal position. And so I started making those because that then became an elevation of the trash, people who had been, relegated to the gutter
Oh, I
and
love that.
sometimes still
Okay.
are. Yeah. Um, and so that's what I had done for about the last 4 years until a year ago it must have been 2 years ago in June. It's a slow project. I'm making maps about the different states in the United States and their stance on abortion.
Oh,
And
wow.
those I'm using medical waste because, I mean, I don't work in the medical field, but just in my daily living, I generate a lot of, wrappings from Band-Aids or
Oh,
um,
interesting.
the
Huh.
syringe flanges that my wife uses for her bioidentical hormones, interdental
Uh,
picks. I use
yeah.
ones that are bamboo, but she doesn't,
Right.
so I have those. And then when I go into the doctor's office and they do like an EKG or something, I ask them for the little electrodes.
Yeah.
I recently had one done, and they put on this gown and they ripped holes in the gown to put the electrodes in. And then I said, "Oh, I'll take the gown." They said, "We'll get you a new one if you want." I said, "No, I want this one."
Yeah, I do the same. My doctor actually uses cloth gowns, which I'm very
Yes,
pleased with,
yeah,
but they hand it to me in a plastic bag,
right,
right? So
yeah.
I take the
Take the plastic
plastic bag
bag home.
home with
Yes, yes. And when I had a dog, I used it to pick up the dog's poo. But
Yes,
right now, I can use
exactly.
it for all kinds of other things. Um,
Yeah.
and that's part of the thing when people say, well, where do you get your supplies? You
You
know,
just have to look around you. They're
yes,
everywhere. Yeah.
right.
But
And
I
I
bet
said,
if you made some friends with some nurses or doctors or just people who see doctors more, you can get a lot more medical waste if that's what you wanted.
well, I have gotten several quart bags of the caps that come on the top of medications in
Oh,
hospitals,
oh yeah.
and all the little discs. And those would be one to drill the holes in and make them like
Yeah.
buttons. And in all kinds of colors,
Yeah.
blue and orange and green and purple,
Yeah.
and that's the collection I've got now.
Right.
So
That's wonderful.
going,
Somewhere long ago, I saw a photo of a small mural that was done in a hospital, and I think it was done by somebody who worked there, and it was all done from those little medical colorful things. It
yes,
was incredible.
yes, it was a nurse who worked in the hospital and
Yeah, yeah. So
created
you've
the
seen that
mural.
too. Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
yeah,
I think
and
that's
that's
awesome. I think they should all be if they're not making their own murals, they should all be saving it for local artists to use.
yes, and it's um, I know artists who work on the subject matter of climate change,
Hmm.
but use brand new materials, and
Yeah,
it kind of blows my mind
I
that
agree.
that here you are, and you're painting with acrylic paints, which are plastic. Not always; they use other things,
Yeah,
but that whole thing of using brand new materials is just adding to the waste stream. And not only
yeah.
that, it's expensive.
It is expensive. It really is. Yeah. I use acrylic paint sometimes. I still, but I have like this old stash from when I used to paint fabrics.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, I think the last time I painted fabric is probably 10 years ago. So I'm still working through my, the whatever paints I have left over, but I'm very, very adamant about the fact that I want to try to be as zero waste as possible in my studio practice, at least. So,
Yes.
and that's it. It's not easy.
No, it's
Zero
not
waste. It's
easy.
not
Yeah.
easy at all.
Yes. And then, I mean, I could go back to the whole supply chain thing. When I started using staples, then I found staples in different colors.
Oh,
Right. But they have to, everything has to get from wherever it's manufactured to wherever it's retailed then to me. I mean,
right. But so then you have to think about how do the staples get their color,
yeah. Yeah.
right?
So, right, because, silver and copper staples are made of, tin and copper.
Right.
Right. Right. I hadn't thought about how do they get their
Yeah.
colors.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, that could be an acrylic paint type of thing or some kind of coating,
Uh,
plastic coating that gives them their color, right?
yes.
Ooh. It,
Ooh.
it, it's
Right.
it's a rabbit hole. You can just go down the rabbit hole.
It is. And then the question that I have is, I'm making objects out of this stuff that we would otherwise throw away to talk about collecting objects, and it's just another object.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
Now what do I do?
Right.
That's a rabbit hole that's tough to.
Yeah.
Right. But this, what I do, I create. I'm an artist. I mean, otherwise I would be working on legislation and teaching people in different ways about.
Right. Which is important too.
Yes. And I have said that whether it's my art or just my activism when I post stuff about my art has changed some people's practices.
Oh, really?
That's
wonderful. I love that.
In very, in small ways, but nonetheless, that's the kind of influence.
Yeah,
I can have that.
No, it and every little bit counts. I have a few painter friends who are now, a lot of especially abstract painters will use different implements to other than just brushes to do their painting, and I've discovered that a few of them use plastic to make these prints on the paint. So now I have them saving me that plastic, which they just use as a material.
Right.
So that's not my paint, but it's not going in the trash. So I'm starting to build a little collection there.
Yes, that's wonderful. That's great. And see what happens with that.
Well,
are you like me? You have so many ideas. You have to live to be 300.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's no way I'll ever be able to accomplish all the ideas that I have swimming around in there.
Yeah.
So whichever one comes to the surface first, that's the one that gets done.
That's what gets done next.
Right.
And yes, and I think if I sit down at my table and I'm like, oh, I don't feel like doing this. It's like, well, you can do this, or you can do something else. But it's not that I'm have artist block.
Right.
It's just
yeah,
it just might be that I'm just like just not into it. Right. And then once I start working on it, it always happens.
Exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I can come into the studio and be like, all right, I have this project to do. I have that project to do. I don't feel like any of them. So I'll start like tinkering, or putting something away. And before you know it, I've made a bigger mess because now I'm making something else.
Yeah. Today I was starting to work on one of the flowers, and I was like, well, what am I going to use? And I just started sorting some of my materials. Mm-hmm. I mean, my materials are pretty sorted. I heard you saying you were sorting your hard plastics by color.
Yes.
And
that's only because I have this idea that I'm working on. Oh. Otherwise, I've just been throwing them in.
all my supplies are sorted by color, not necessarily by hue, but and I use materials other than just plastic. I use fabrics and buttons. I've got lots of. No one ever has to buy another button. Just see me. We will find you the right buttons. Just, DM me. Right. There's no
need to buy
buttons. Yes. And other things that I pick up, Mylar balloons. I can't even tell you everything. I had a friend who cleaned out her house. She moved from a big 4-bedroom house to a little 2-bedroom condo. And she sent me. She's one of those people that kept everything like from her childhood.
Oh, wow.
And she sent me her troll dolls.
That's awesome.
Right? So it's like, okay, now use this in an art piece. Okay. And so, but I don't accept trash from just anybody. This is a friend I went to undergraduate school with, and it's one of my best friends. So she gets to send me stuff.
Yeah. No, it's true. Otherwise, it actually gets to be a little overwhelming.
Yes,
I'll collect when I'm doing some large installation, and I'll put out the call that I need extra materials, and people are always happy to send me their trash. But then there comes a point where that project is done. My studio is pretty small, and my storage is pretty small too. So it's like, thank you, but I can't accept it all.
I can't accept anymore. Yeah. No, I collected all that stuff for you, and it was late getting towards the start of the project, and I'm so glad that I messaged you and said, "Do you need this?" And you said, "No." I was
Yes.
like, "Okay, good."
I
I
did.
put it away.
Yeah, you did send me one package. I
I
remember
did
that.
send it. Yes, I
Yeah.
sent you a package from down here.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah, I remember that.
right. But this was up once I was in Connecticut, and I said, "Oh well, that's no problem. I'll just put this away, and I'll use it, or she'll do another project. I'll send it to her, or
Exactly.
something will happen with it, and I save a little bit on the carbon footprint of shipping it to you,
Right.
and then your whole issue of having to store it."
Exactly. So thank you. Well, when you're back in Connecticut, we should make a plan because I am just north of New York City. I'm in Westchester County.
Yes,
So
I know.
we
Yes,
should make a
and
plan and get together in real life.
I would love to do that. That would be very much fun. I've been wanting to meet you for about 40 years in
Okay.
person.
Well,
Right.
that would be great. But it's been lovely talking to you today. This has been fun.
It
Thank
has been. Thank you
you
for
for
inviting
making
me.
yourself available all the way from your tropical island.
Fortunately, they have gotten pretty good internet down here. So
Good.
it wasn't true 10 years ago when I first came here. So take care.
Oh, wow.
Enjoy
All right.
spring.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah.
All right.
We'll talk soon.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.
Thanks for listening and watching. Please visit Sarah at sarahschneiderman.com. All the links are in the show notes. See you soon. This podcast was created, produced, and edited by me, Natalia Korover. Theme music by R.C. Gaida. Find out more about me at artbynatalia.com. Find out about my community at repurposercollective.com and about my kids' education initiatives at ecoloop.art. Thank you for listening.